It is 6 p.m., so we will get started. Let the record reflect that all commissioners are present other than Commissioner Miller. And the first item on the agenda is public discussion of any item that is not on the agenda. So if any member of the public has anything they would like to raise to the commission that's not already on the agenda, now is the time to do so. And seeing nothing, that brings us to the rezoning item related to a property at the northwest corner of Rochester Avenue and North Scott Boulevard.
Yep, 1 second.
No problem.
Just the presentation. Okay. Is that, I think that's it.
Which one says Sherry? Yeah, that's cool.
Thank you. Thank you. Madison Conley, Associate Planner, here to present item 4, Lot 66 of Monument Hills. Case number REZ 25-0007, location northwest corner of Rochester Avenue and North Scott Boulevard. This is an application for a rezoning of approximately 7.76 acres of land from low-density single-family residential zone with a planned development overlay, OPD RS5, to low-density multifamily residential zone with a planned development overlay, OPD RM12. Shown here on the screen is an aerial map of the property for the proposed development. It's outlined by that dashed white line, and this is Lot 66 of Monument Hills. Next, we have the zoning map for the subject property. To the north, we have single family with Harvest Preserve, zoned OPD RS5, and IDRS zone, which is interim development single family residential zone. To the south, we have single family zoned RS5, east is vacant zoned IDRS, and west single family zoned OPD RS5. The applicant for the proposed rezoning is Monument Hills LLC. This rezoning is needed due to a change in ownership and to allow for a senior living community with 3 duplexes in a 100-unit multifamily independent living building. In terms of case history, the subject property was rezoned and subdivided in 2022 and 2023. This was a rezoning of 64.38 acres to OPD RS5 and 0.31 acres to OPD IDRS in August of 2022. This rezoning included conditions that related to trail and access easements, right-of-way dedication, and traffic calming devices. All conditions have been fulfilled. Then in September of 2022, a preliminary plat was approved. Following, in April of 2023, a final plat was approved that shows a conservation easement, and this included the approval of a final sensitive areas development plan. With this proposed rezoning, the applicant has submitted a rezoning exhibit, applicant statement, elevations, and an updated traffic study that was requested by city staff. A good neighbor meeting was held on June 5th, and staff has received late correspondence that has been printed and provided at this meeting. In terms of zoning, the current zone of the subject property is OPD RS5. The OPD overlay allows for a mix of housing types. The RS5 zone encourages lower density development with larger lot sizes and greater setbacks. These zones allow flexibility in design within a low density single family zone. Previously, there was an approved development of 12 single family homes, 3 duplexes, a 29-unit multifamily building, and a private clubhouse for a total of 47 units on the lot. Now the proposed development would be to the proposed zone would be to the OPD RM12 zone. The RM12 zone supports diverse housing types with a focus on compatible site and building design. And this proposed rezoning includes the construction of 3 duplexes, a 100-unit, 3-story multifamily building, which gives us a total of 106 units. Here's an image of the preliminary OPD plan. As you can see, there are 3 duplexes located along Heron Drive and the multifamily building is positioned at the corner of Rochester Avenue and North Scott Boulevard. These are two main arterial streets. In the middle of the multifamily building is a pool, bocce ball court, and pickleball court, and then to the east is a garden and dog run and dog run. And this was the updated preliminary OPD plan that staff received just recently today. This is the landscaping plan as well. This shows the street trees required in addition to screening requirements for this particular zone. Next, I will go into the plan development approval criteria and how the proposed development fits in with the policy vision of the city. The planned development approval criteria consists of 4 elements. 1, density and design is compatible with adjacent development. 2, development will not overburden existing streets and utilities. 3, development will not adversely affect views, property values, and privacy. And 4, land use and building types will be in the public interest. And with all rezoning cases, there's rezoning review criteria. This consists of 1, consistency with the comprehensive plan, and 2, compatibility with the existing neighborhood. The first approval criteria is density and design compatible with adjacent development. In the OPD RM12 zone, there's a max density of 15 units per net acre. The proposed development would total for 106 units on that 7.76 net acres of the subject property. This results in a 13.7 unit per acre density and complies with the zoning standards. The proposed land use, which is the senior living community consisting of 3 duplexes and the 100-unit multifamily building, expands housing diversity and meets growing senior housing demand. Also, there is that conservation easement at the northeast corner, and no development is allowed to occur on a conservation easement. The development has been clustered away near the arterial streets, and this is away from the sensitive areas that are found to the north and on site. There is an adjacent outlet to the north, which is permanently undevelopable, and new construction must meet multifamily site development standards. This will help ensure compatibility with nearby single-family homes. With this first criteria, mass, scale, and general layout need to be analyzed and considered. Staff found that the proposed development allows a scaled transition from the adjacent single-family homes. Duplexes are placed next to Heron Drive, and the larger building is located at the corner of Rochester Ave and North Scott Boulevard, which, as I stated, are both arterial streets. The project must comply with multifamily site development standards to help promote attractive, pedestrian-friendly design. Additionally, the applicant has requested 2 waivers through the OPD process. The first waiver being a height waiver, and this is to increase the building from 35 feet to 40 feet in order to accommodate the site slopes and the pitch roof design. The added height would allow vaulted ceilings and still would meet the open space requirements. There's a proposal of 182 bedrooms with this development, and that would require 1,820 square feet of open space. This would be met through amenities like the pool, courts, and garden. The second waiver is a front setback waiver to reduce the arterial setback from 40 feet to 32 feet. This would be at the corner of Rochester Avenue and North Scott Boulevard. Already, most of the building exceeds the 40-foot arterial setback required, and the design meets the criteria for privacy, light, air circulation, and the tree plantings. Also, there's a 20-foot separation maintained from the multifamily building to the duplexes. To continue with this first criteria, open space and traffic circulation have been analyzed. Development must meet open space requirements per City Code Section 142A4E. And as I stated, with the proposal of 182 bedrooms, that requires the 1,820 square feet of open space. Compliance will be confirmed during site plan review. Traffic access is limited to a private drive from Heron Drive on the west side, and there's no access proposed from North Scott Boulevard or Rochester Avenue, which minimizes traffic impacts on the arterial streets. Here is an image of the elevations for the duplexes. This includes the west elevation and east elevation. And then we have the multifamily elevations. The east elevation is from the view of North Scott Boulevard, the south from Rochester Avenue, and the west from Heron Drive. The second approval criteria includes ensuring development will not overburden existing streets and utilities. For the subject property, sanitary sewer and water services are already provided. Additionally, staff has required the updated traffic study to be submitted, and this traffic study evaluated the impacts of the proposed development in addition to the entire Monument Hills subdivision. The study found that there will be a projection of about 1,004 new daily trips by the year 2026. This would project about 69 a.m. peak hour trips and 92 p.m. peak hour trips. Additionally, key intersections along Rochester Avenue were analyzed and are expected to operate at a level of service C or better under both baseline and future conditions. Staff has reviewed the study and agrees with the findings. The third approval criteria includes development will not adversely affect views, property values, and privacy. For the surrounding development, part of Lot 66 and the area to the north are protected by a conservation easement which prevents development. The existing single-family homes are located along Heron Drive to the west and north and across Rochester Avenue to the south. Duplexes are adjacent to the single-family homes, while the larger multifamily building is positioned at the corner of the two arterial streets. This helps provide a natural transition in building scale. The multifamily site development standards include screening requirements and help support neighborhood compatibility. Overall, staff finds that the design minimizes impacts on nearby residences and is comparable to what could be expected with conventional development. 4, land use and building types will be in the public interest. The preliminary OPD plan includes a mix of duplexes and multifamily units, expanding housing choices and addressing the city's need for senior housing. The proposed development balances increased housing supply with environmental protection by helping to preserve sensitive areas through the conservation easement and clustering development appropriately. Then we have the rezoning review criteria. First being consistency with the comprehensive plan. The IC 2030 comprehensive plan future land use is a vision for what the city would like to see in the future. The IC 2030 plan flume shows this area appropriate for conservation design. This designation is primarily due to the sensitive features located in this area, like slopes and woodlands. The proposed development aligns with this designation by clustering development away from these areas and preserving them through a conservation easement. Additionally, staff needed to look at the Northeast District future land use map, and we found that this envisions the area for townhomes and small apartment buildings in this location on the subject property. The plan encourages development similar in scale to single-family homes and suggests more intense housing be located near arterial streets, which the proposed development shows. Then we look at compatibility with the existing neighborhood. There are the existing single-family homes located to the northwest and south of the subject property, and the proposed development does consist of 3 duplexes in a 100-unit multifamily independent living building. And this building is located at the 2 arterial streets at the southeast corner of Lot 66, Rochester Avenue and North Scott Boulevard, overall providing for a smooth land use transition from low to high density development. For these reasons, staff finds the proposed development compatible with the surrounding neighborhood. As I've mentioned throughout this presentation, there are environmentally sensitive areas located on the property. These include steep slopes, critical slopes, woodlands, and wetlands. There is the approved final sensitive area development plan that will not be changing with this proposed rezoning. Additionally, the conservation easement that was established during the final plat will also remain unchanged and undevelopable. Based off the following information, staff recommends approval of REZ 25-0007, a proposal to rezone approximately 7.76 acres of land located on Lot 66 of Monument Hills subdivision, northwest of Rochester Avenue and North Scott Boulevard, from OPD RS5 zone to OPD RM12 zone. Upon recommendation from the Planning and Zoning Commission, a public hearing will be scheduled for consideration by the City Council. City Council will schedule the date for the public hearing during the next City Council formal meeting, July 8th. This concludes my presentation, and now I turn it back over to the Commission for questions.
Thank you, Madison, for a thoughtful presentation as always. Now is the part of the meeting where the commission has the opportunity to ask questions of staff. And I have two. One is that I think you said that the height requirement is in part to accommodate the sloping nature of the property. Can you help me understand the impact, if any, that that would have on the view of the folks that live across the street, across Rochester?
With the height impact, it would be the request to increase it by, I believe, 5 feet. As staff analyze, I don't think it would be much different from conventional development. With this design, I believe the developer was interested in having vaulted ceilings, so it will add, I believe it will add, let me think how to say it. Maybe Ann, you could help.
I think what maybe you're trying to say is a design that is consistent with a lot of the homes in the area with the gable roof as opposed to a flat roof. And that's partially why they're asking for that height increase. I will say staff didn't analyze what it would be across the street if it was 35 feet or 40 feet. I'm guessing their view is going to change, whether there's a 35-foot building there or a 40-foot building. Especially for those homes that are closest to the building, the view will change.
Yeah, I guess I was just trying to understand if the waiver's in part because the property slopes, then you have another section of the property that's relatively flat, right? So whether allowing that variance would actually impact sightline at all, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I think the applicant can probably speak to the sloping nature of the site and how the increase will help them with the complexities of the site. But I think in terms of the view, I'm not sure that 35 versus 40 is going to be much different for the neighbors.
Okay, thank you. And then one other question. I think the packet referenced a traffic study that was funded by the applicant. And Madison, I think you noted that you guys took a look at that and agreed with its findings. Is staff pretty comfortable that that study is accurate and sufficiently independent?
Yeah, we worked with the transportation staff as well, and we bounced back our findings, and we had a discussion. And it seems that the baseline was for the future 2026, and it anticipated that it would be normal for arterial streets, and there was no major issues or findings within that study that was a concern for staff.
Okay, thank you. Anybody else on the commission have questions for staff?
Madison, do you have a PowerPoint slide that shows the conservation areas?
Yeah, I do. One second. Let me just go back really quick. Right here is the conservation area, and then the outlot C is right up here.
So it's the northeast corner,
Oh, I'm sorry, you can't see my mouse. Yes, that's correct.
the north, wait, which are corners here? Southeast corner, and then the northeast corner, correct?
It's the northeast corner of the site.
Yep.
But there's an additional conservation easement to the north, which is off of
Okay,
lot
okay, okay.
66.
Very good, very good.
And that's Outlot C.
Do you, no reason you'd know this, but I'm just curious of, do you know the width of the right-of-way on Rochester Avenue? I'm just trying to do the trigonometry for the homes on to the south, and then to the buildings. It just seems to me that of doing the trigonometry, the elevations, it would appear just very slightly different, if you were in a house on the lots to the south.
I don't know the width. Maybe Ann can speak to that.
I don't know the width of Rochester either.
Okay.
Any other questions for staff?
Actually, I have the final plat here. I can probably see it. I can't read it.
I can try.
At the intersection, it's 3 lanes. There's a turn lane and, you know.
Just seems to me that it's pretty wide, but that's not much of a measurement.
That's
Pretty
this,
wide.
that's not the right of
Well,
way. That's
wide
half
for
the
what
right
is
of way.
basically a 2-lane
Yeah.
street with turn lanes occasionally.
The engineer for the, probably has that information.
We'll get to it. Yep.
I have 2 questions, too. What does the current zoning, the OPD RM5 allow?
It's OPD RS5, and that allows for low-density single-family, so single-family detached duplexes.
What's the number of dwelling units? I'm just trying to compare to,
I'm trying to remember.
It's 47. The last rezoning approved 47 units. So because of the OPD, they would be required to build what was approved with that
Okay.
OPD, which was 47 units.
okay. And my other question is just about the open space. Is that open space just available to the people within this development?
I believe so.
Like the
Okay.
pool?
Just the residents.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But there's also land that sounded like there was a garden, too, or?
Yep, right
a
here.
walk-
There's a garden and dog run to the east.
And that's all for the
Private,
residents.
okay.
Yeah.
I
Other
have a-
questions?
I have a question. Well, one of my questions was about, and maybe the applicant can address this better than you can, but I'll say it now so they can think about the answer. It's discussed that the need for additional up to 40 feet is because of gabled roofs, and yet in none of the elevations are there any gabled roofs.
I
They're all
believe,
flat roofs.
I believe on the elevations, let me go back. Oh, I think it's down this way. I didn't include it. There's a additional little picture on the side that shows the height of or that shows the image of a gabled roof. I didn't put it on this slide, so my apologies. But we also calculate height, I think, with like a certain, I thought we calculated height a certain way that we didn't include. Never
Yeah,
mind.
I think the architect is here, and could maybe speak to your questions on the design.
Okay, so they show you a gabled roof, and then they show you an elevation that's all flat roofs?
They can clarify that. I did just say gabled, and there clearly doesn't look like to
Well,
be a gabled roof here, so that was my mistake.
But it says gabled in the documentation we got too.
Okay.
That's, okay, they can talk about that. My other question is sort of about pedestrian access. And I remember from when we rezoned this before, that there is a trail that's coming from, is it Bluffwood? Is that the name of that neighborhood?
That's correct.
Coming down through here. And then, do you have a slide that shows the whole development?
I do not.
No, but there is a
Basically,
trail.
when people get through that trail, then they're gonna have to come out. The only way past this very big development on the corner, really the only way they have to go is south, out Allison. correct?
Or Heron.
We can't
there's
get out on
two-
Heron. You can't get out to Rochester on Heron.
Yes, you can. There's two access points. There's Heron
But it's
Drive
much
and
further
Allison
to the
Way.
east.
Allison
to the
Way is to
west.
the west, and then Heron Drive is to the east. Heron Drive
Heron,
is.
that's what I
yeah,
meant, yeah. Heron.
So there's two access points to the entire development, which was included with the previous rezoning. We could try to bring it up on the map if that would be helpful.
You're just trying to find the trail connection.
Right, and I assume there's sidewalks here that just aren't shown?
There's sidewalks. There'll have to be sidewalks.
Okay, any final questions for staff before we turn to the applicant?
I had two questions. One is, I didn't see, or I couldn't find the elevation it's built at. Like, I don't know if it's at street elevation or if it's dropped down below that. I know that lot took quite a bit of infill, so I'm sure the architect can provide that information. As well as, this is just a question, the stub street that comes off to it'd be to the northeast, as referenced there, is that a requirement for like fire turning or something like that?
Yeah, Troy Roth, our fire marshal, took a look at this development and made sure that they had adequate access for any fire lanes that were required.
Okay, so it's not a future connection, it's just,
No.
And to clarify, that's not a street. It's a driveway.
oh, okay, okay.
I do have the full development up if the commission would like to see that. Let's see. Why is it not showing? Okay, here we go. So this is the lot, you can see my arrow. This is the lot, this is the subject property for the proposed rezoning. This was originally the area that was rezoned the last time the commission saw this. And so there is two access points to the development, Heron Circle, or Heron Drive, and Allison Way. And here is the trail connection from this development to our existing city park.
Okay.
Thank you, Ann.
Okay, just back to my sidewalk issue. So that sidewalk is gonna come right behind, I mean, the setback on those duplexes, what is it what will it be from the sidewalk?
It's a 15-foot setback typically from a street, yeah.
Okay, so now's the opportunity for the applicant to address the commission, if the applicant would like to speak. And if you'd please be able to write your name in for the record on the sheet of paper there.
I don't have a pen, but I'll get it before we leave.
Well, we might be able to loan one to you.
Hello, my name's Mike Welch. I'm with Shoemaker and Holland Engineers. We're working with Nelson Development is the applicant, well, the potential owner. And Jacob here is with Nelson. And then Envision is the architect, and they were not able to make it tonight, but I think I can kind of cover the questions that we had so far. So what I'll probably do is just kind of start kind of taking some notes on your questions and try to address the ones that maybe there seem to be some confusion about. And then if you have more questions, we can dive into those if that works for all of you.
Sounds great.
So I guess a couple things I do want to highlight. So as Ann and Madison stated, this was part of Monument Hills subdivision, which we did a couple years ago. And that was, total was 72 acres. And of that 72 acres, about 34 acres was placed into conservation. So it was in 3 separate outlots, and then as Madison stated, that conservation easement does extend into this lot also. And those will, as she stated, will all remain unchanged. I think when we started talking building and building heights and asking for additional height, there seemed to be a little bit of confusion there. I think the idea of the gabled roof, that image that Madison was referring to, was actually for those townhouse duplexes. So those do have a peaked roof. The previous iteration, when we did the original rezoning a couple years ago, that multifamily building was 2 stories with a pitched roof. The peak of that pitched roof was 38 feet above grade. In this proposal, it's a 3-story building with a flat roof, and that's the eave on that is at 36 feet above grade, so we're actually a little bit lower. So the reason we're asking for 40 feet, even though we're only 36 feet tall, is in city code, the building height is measured at average grade. So that would be a distance, you go 5 feet outside the building, the ground elevation there. So we kind of have 2 features on this building. Along Rochester, the first floor is elevated a little bit above the street to kind of have a patio with a couple steps down. So people that have those ground floor units will have the ability to walk out directly out of the building into that like front yard space along Rochester. So because we have those patios with a couple steps there, the grade goes lower. So we're taller than 36 feet as it's calculated in city code. The other piece on the northeast corner of the building where, Chad, you were asking about the driveway and the turnaround. That is the entrance to the underground parking for the building. And so we're dropping about 12 feet there. So as you come around that corner of the building, because we have to drop to get into the parking structure, our grade goes down. And so when we do that calculation of average grade, we're higher than 36 feet there. So that's why we asked for 40, so we can meet that code requirement. How that impacts the people who live across the street is they will see a 36-foot tall building because we're a foot or 2 above the sidewalk grade on Rochester. It's on the back side of the building that the building's actually taller on the back side because of that parking entrance being on the back side, on the north side of the building, if that makes sense.
Mike, if I can rudely interrupt you.
Yeah.
So I just want to clarify what you just stated. So for people looking at it from the south, so the southern elevation, they're going to see a 36-foot height of a building, correct?
Correct, yep.
Which is just 1 foot higher than the previously approved zoning of 35 feet.
It's 1 foot higher than the code allowed zoning of 35 feet.
But I mean,
Yeah,
for what they would see.
what they would see, correct,
Okay.
yep.
Oh, and just as you're speaking, because I know you know this stuff, what the width of, you think of, the width of Rochester is
Yep.
there?
Yeah, Rochester varies. You can kind of see on the plat here, the line on the south side kind of jogs in and out, but it's about 66 feet for a right-of-way width. Some of it's 63, some of it's 60, just based on how it was platted over the years. The other thing to note is it's a little hard to see, but at the corner of Scott and Rochester, there's kind of that heavy line that starts to angle north and east. In that previous plat, we dedicated right-of-way to the city to allow for a future roundabout. And that's, if you recall, Madison saying where you had a 32-foot building setback. The request for that reduced setback was because we had that additional right-of-way, and it'll be a roundabout, so we'll still be further away from the paving than what would be typical at a typical intersection. Check my notes here. Original average gauge. I guess trail access, I think, Ann, you kind of covered that, right? So the trail comes out of the park and goes up Allison. That stays an 8-foot wide, I think it's 8-foot wide, public trail with a 5-foot sidewalk on the opposite side of the street. And then as you come up Heron Drive, that will have 5-foot sidewalks on both sides of the street. And then as each lot is developed, the developer or builder on that lot builds their section of sidewalk. So with our project here, we will be building a 5-foot sidewalk along the east side of Heron Drive, adjacent to the property, and then along the north side of Rochester from the intersection of Heron Drive going east to Scott Boulevard. And then there is already a sidewalk along the west side of Scott Boulevard. if all
So
that-
the 8-foot sidewalk ends and a 5-foot sidewalk begins?
Nope, the 8-foot sidewalk is all on Allison.
Okay.
So when we did that was where
Okay.
the city wanted that trail to be, was on Allison Drive.
Okay,
And then, so Heron is a typical city street with 5-foot sidewalks on both sides.
okay.
But yeah, for the foreseeable future, until all the houses are built, there'll be gaps in that 5-foot sidewalk as you go north through the subdivision. I think those were all I think I got everyone's questions, but if I missed any, just holler in.
It is very impressive coverage of a lot of different questions. Anybody else on the commission have questions for the applicant?
I'm assuming there's no affordable housing in this unit.
I can let Jacob answer that directly, but I think at this time, you aren't planning any, correct? I guess that's the other thing, it'll be, we talked about, came up during the Good Neighbor meeting too, is there'll be all rental units in here. And as we talked about the open space is kind of included in the courtyard and has those features.
And it's all a 55-plus community?
Correct.
And these are independent living, or are they?
Yeah, I think you would refer to it as your active independent living. And then, I can't remember if I said it or not, but in the parking below the building, there's one space per, or at least one space per resident. So every resident has a parking spot if they want it.
Per resident or per apartment?
Or, sorry, per apartment,
unit.
yeah.
One thing that's somewhat hard to distinguish time to time is looking at a 2D image. Building of this side, does it have certain requirements as far as not being a completely flat wall and insets and offsets?
Yeah, Madison, can you go to the elevation? She's pulling that up. Chad, to answer your question, yes, it does have, the code requires certain like fenestration and articulation on the building. And,
Sorry,
and
one
it kind of, when we look at it, you'll see there's kind of where each patio door is. I think it's like one page down from that, Madison.
Yeah,
Oh, it's
there's just multiple
frozen.
tabs
Oh.
open, so I'm trying to find the right one.
No pressure.
It's a lot.
Yeah, no one's watching.
I'm sorry.
I think go back to where you were.
Okay.
But at those doors, the building steps in and out at those doorways there, and kind of has that. And then again with those,
Okay, thank you.
with that kind of patio feature there, kind of breaks it up and keeps that. So yeah, if we look at the south elevation in the middle, where that color changes, there's also, the building is kind of stepping in and out at those spots.
Well, I don't understand, in and out?
So like, instead of just being one solid plane, there's spots where the building recesses away from the street and towards the street. And that is, again, part of our, when we get to site plan approval, that would be reviewed and clear and verified that we meet code at that point.
Great. Thank you very much. Is there anybody else that will be speaking on behalf of the applicant?
Did you want to add anything, Jacob, or? No? Guess not.
All right, thank you,
Thank
sir. That brings us to the public comment portion of the meeting. So if there are any members of the public that would like to address the commission, now is your opportunity to do so.
I'm going to sign in real quick. My
Okay,
name is
thank
Le-
you. And while you're doing that, I'll just remind you, you have 5 minutes. And so
Okay.
just use
I'll-
it
I'll
however you
make
see
quick-
best.
My name is Larry Lubert. I live at 3269 Rochester, which is on the corner of Rochester and Heron. And my front porch faces north, so I'm looking at Rochester, looking across the street. I've met with the staff a couple times. We've exchanged a couple emails. I brought you guys some better photographs. My main concern, I'm a registered professional engineer out of the state of Missouri. I have a master's degree in mechanical engineering, and ego trip-wise, I have 3 U.S. patents on dental floss, of all crazy things. Anyway, my job for years, obviously, I deal with details, lots of details. And I got into a lot of detailed discussions on this project. And the thing, I got into the weeds yesterday about the loss of service calculations in the study. And I got an explanation. I didn't think it made sense. I went home, and it didn't. It wasn't right. The loss of service calculations in the study is based on some screwy numbers. The capacity through the four-way stop in Scott Boulevard in Rochester is capacity limited because it's a four-way stop. And, it's about 550 cars an hour, I think was in the study. The study says the capacity of Rochester in front of my house is 1,400 cars per hour. And I've struggled for days trying to figure out where that number came from. It comes from history of the manual that's used to do these studies. And it is designed, it was the number that is for a rural road that has less than 2 mile segments that are interrupted by anything. And they went from 2,000 to 1,800 to, I think in 2010, down to 1,700. And that's the base, and everything's reduced from that based upon things that apply. What I told the staff yesterday, I got into a conversation about the study only discusses traffic. The problem is, I've got copies of it here. The manual that's used to do this requires that street to be an interrupted flow street. The numbers that were being used were for a continuous flow rural street. That's a big difference. There's a whole section of this manual. This manual is 3 volumes long. It's about 1,000 pages. And it's got more statistics in it than I've seen since I was in college. I mean, it's loaded. It's really, really hard to follow. But on page 2 of the first chapter, it defines Rochester as an interrupted street. Now, what that means is you have to take into account traffic, bicycling, like was mentioned earlier, city buses, and walkers. And none of that's in the study of the original one, and none of that's in the study of the second one. And I asked about it yesterday, and I was told that, oh, it's not that big a deal. Well, I got photographs. I took this morning. I walked out of my house this morning, and this is what I saw. Runners crossed Rochester, and cars stopped. By the time I took this photograph, there were 2 cars stopped, waiting for these runners to go. These are Regina runners. The city high runners run down Rochester. Their families in the evenings with kids on little bitty bicycles going right across the sidewalk, across the street in front of us. They're going over to the ice cream shop. So my big concern is safety. And the staff has seen this picture. Actually, do you see a pedestrian in this picture? Anybody? See a pedestrian in this picture? You know where it's at? It's right behind this pole. See the little white spot? That's my wife standing behind the light pole, 5 feet from the Rochester Drive, on the crosswalk street. This pole here is 150 feet away.
You've got about 30 seconds if you have any concluding
Pardon?
remarks. You have about 30 seconds if you have any concluding remarks.
Okay. Buffer, you said? I'm
Yeah,
sorry.
you've got 30 seconds.
Okay. Here's another photograph. Well, here's another photograph. See a car in this one? Same car, 2 seconds later, 100 feet from the crosswalk. You know, I had a bad experience last year. I was on Rochester when that happened last year.
Thank you very much. We appreciate your input, but want to make sure that everybody has a chance to speak. So that is your 5 minutes.
Thank you. But I'm making a formal request that this study be redone because it doesn't follow regulations.
Okay, thank you. And so that's your 5 minutes. So is there anybody else in the public that would like to address the commission? If so, now's your opportunity to do so.
Hi, my name's Cameron. I'm not nearly as prepared as Larry.
Yeah, would you mind just writing your name down there?
Yeah,
on
of course.
the sheet for the record?
Okay. I'll keep this quick, to the point. When we just bought our house, we're at 3301 Rochester, so just one lot in from Heron, and we will be facing this development if it goes in. When we purchased our house in January, we were told that this was just going to be the single-family houses, the 45 unit, whatever. So it would still have some view if I go outside my front door when I go and look out my big front window that I love so much to get natural light. I was looking forward to still having some view. And now if we go with this 36-foot massive building, I'm just going to be staring at a wall for the next 15 to 20 years until we pay off our mortgage and then can finally move to a place with a actual view, actual sunlight. It's just nice to be able to see outside on my days off. I work at the hospital, so I don't see outside ever on my 12-hour shifts. So it's nice to just get some sunlight every now and then. As far as fitting in, I don't know if you guys have been out there, if you're familiar with the area. I don't know what they really mean by fitting in with a neighborhood and all of that, but our houses don't look like this. It would be a total eyesore. Sorry to be so superficial here with all of this, but it would just be such an incredible eyesore. It would completely obstruct all of our views. And yeah, it's just a real damper. That's all I've got.
Thank you. Anybody else in the public that would like to address the commission? And if you
Hi.
could sign in as well, please.
Yeah. Hi there. My name's Angie Smith. I live at 3310 Lower West Branch Road, Iowa City, right there in the same area. I also serve on the Iowa City Climate Action Commission, and as part of that commission, I'm also on the steering committee for our new comprehensive plan, so I'm very familiar with some of the challenges that have been happening in our community. I've lived in my home for over 20 years, and so I've been very aware of the zoning changes that have happened over the last few years with this plot of land. I will say, to see that nature preserve be zoned for housing was really devastating and really sad for myself and the neighbors in my community. But I also just want to caution decision makers in our community to not fall prey to NIMBYism, that as part of this steering committee and all the things that we know are happening in our community, we need affordable housing. We need more affordable housing units. And in order to have more housing, we need more dense living. We know this. And so as a climate action commissioner, we in our city value climate resiliency. And we know in order for our community to be climate resilient, we need more dense living. That is a way to solve and help our city be more climate resilient. I know a lot of you are familiar with the 15-minute walkable cities. This only happens when we have more dense living. So when I see this zoning, I would much rather there be dense living than single-family million-dollar homes. I don't need million-dollar neighbors, but I would rather see affordable housing in this area. I mean, that's my opinion. We are headed towards a climate crisis, and so we need to be planning for climate resiliency. I know our community really cares about equity, and that this is part of that. Equitable housing, equitable transportation. I will agree that I'm very concerned about the transportation in this area. So when I talk to my neighbors too, that's our thing that we all worry about, is the volume of cars. We do live in a car-centric United States, and the volume of cars coming out of this area and then the speeds is concerning. So my preferred mode of transportation is bike. I bike year-round in my community. It's a very bikeable community, and I would love for more people to be biking in my community. It's hard to bike in some areas. I don't bike on Rochester. There are semis, fast traffic. No one is going 35 miles an hour. And so I would like to see more traffic calming measures taken. So when I hear you talking about roundabouts, there are ways that we can calm traffic so that it's not going as fast. And I'm sure you're familiar with some of those traffic calming measures. When we talk about a wide streets, cars go faster on wide streets. It's an arterial. I understand that. But are there ways that we can slow down traffic so that the traffic, the volume of traffic in this area, that we can better manage that. I just want to make sure that I'm getting through all the things that I wanted to talk about. I think that's probably, I think I've conveyed my message that I think our city cares about climate resiliency and equity, and I would love to see more affordable housing units. If you're familiar with the comprehensive plan and our need for more housing in our community, we're gonna need more dense living, so where are we gonna put dense living units? And I think our decision makers need to be planning for some dense living opportunities, but we need to figure out and balance transportation speeds and the consequences of having more dense living. So, thank you.
Thank you. Any other members of the public that would like to address the commission? Seeing none, anybody that has already spoken can have another 2 minutes if there is anything that they would like to add. And seeing no additional comment, do we have a motion on this measure?
So moved for approval of REZ 25-0007.
Is there a second?
Second. Elliot.
Discussion? Commissioner Hench?
Yes, I just wrote a couple notes as this was going on in no particular order. I'm completely sensitive to the issues people brought up. I absolutely know how everybody feels when construction occurs that you didn't count on being, but a couple attenuating circumstances, I think, is Rochester right through there is a 66-foot right-of-way. So between the houses to the south and to the front of the building, I think there's a sufficient distance. The height of the building on the southern elevation would be 36 feet. That's only 1 foot higher than it would have been at the already approved zoning with maximum height of 35 foot. It is a corner lot and it's an arterial street, so this is exactly where we want that more dense development to occur, multifamily. So this is exactly what we've been striving for all throughout the city. Just to remind everybody, a similar concept, a multifamily rezoning was previously approved. I don't remember the date. So I feel bad for anybody who was misled by realtors that it was all going to be single family, but that was never true. One of our goals is diversity of housing types. This continues that to help us meet one of those goals. Another goal is to increase the housing supply and density. This is another move towards that. And unfortunately, but we can only go with the rules we have. There is no requirement for affordable housing in this particular district. And I do like the fact that right-of-way is being donated by the applicant so that there can be a future roundabout constructed at Rochester and Scott that will help with traffic calming and vehicle movement efficiency. So I think this application satisfies pretty much everything we've been doing for the years through this commission. And I know change is difficult and it's not pleasant, but we have to look at what's best for the city of Iowa City.
Thank you, Commissioner Hench. Commissioner Townsend?
I just have a question, and I guess I thought about it after I read through the information of how this property was designated before and what it is now, what this new designation is from 47 units to 108 units, and what was the rationale for doing that? I'm sure it was with the developer, but was there any special reason why we're doubling the units in that area?
Yeah, as Madison mentioned, the original project fell through.
Okay.
And there is new ownership now, and this is what they're proposing.
Commissioner Craig?
You know, I'm an East Side person. I live right off of Rochester Street, and I know what it's like trying to get across Rochester Street at certain times of the day. So I'm sensitive to that. I've driven by, today, they probably thought I was gonna buy a lot, because I drove, thank goodness it was raining and not too many people were working outside. Because I drove through there several times and came from Scott and came from Rochester. My biggest concern, you know, I agree we have to have more dense development and that this is obviously more dense than what we approved the first time. My biggest concern is, you know, the mass and scale relative to what is around it. I have no problem with the mass and scale within the development itself, but when you look at the housing across on Rochester, even when you look at the commercial development, Kitty Corner, there's nothing that's 40 feet tall in there, I don't think. So I have big concerns with that, and frankly, I don't know how I'm gonna vote, but I guess I'll vote when the time comes.
We'll be surprised. Commissioner Elliott?
I agree with what Mike said about the density, and I've walked on those nice sidewalks there, and it's a good location for a lot more people, I think.
Commissioner Wade?
Yeah, I've also spent a lot of time driving around out there, especially in that neighborhood, out of my price range for houses. But very nice construction.
Maybe if we all went together, we could afford.
All over the same place.
Group Planning and Zoning House.
Yeah.
I agree. You know, we just got done talking about our deficit in housing for the community. I don't see this, as far as fitting in the community, just like Walden Place over on Mormon Trek. I kind of see it similar in functionality and also fitting within the neighborhood. For height, similar to the next properties or down in Churchill area. So I didn't have any reservations on this. I understand it's a change in what was originally planned. Of course, we all went to overlook the Buddha to the north, but I think it's appropriate for the area.
Thank you, Commissioner Wade. So I will join the group of people that was driving back and forth and awkwardly staring at people's homes and surrounding property. But I agree with Commissioner Hench that we very much need additional housing in Iowa City, particularly for seniors. And it seems to me that this is a good place to put that housing, given access to arterial streets and the significant plot of land that's available. You know, I really appreciate everybody that has spoken today and, you know, think that there's been some fantastic input. And, you know, I completely understand that this might not be aesthetically ideal for everybody, but I think the architects have done a really nice job with what they're working with. And, you know, I also do think it is important to note that the property was already approved for fairly substantial development. And to me, this is a relatively modest expansion of existing plans. And like I said, you know, I mean, it's front and center in our comprehensive plan that we have a housing crisis and we need to build houses to bring prices down. And what better place to do that than with an empty lot? And so given that, I would be inclined to support this motion. So that brings us to a vote. All in favor of Commissioner Wade's motion?
Actually, it's my motion.
Yeah, I don't get this one.
Or, sorry, Commissioner Hench. Commissioner Hench's motion.
Aye.
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 All opposed? Seeing none opposed, the motion passes, how many are we, 6-0? Which brings us to item number 5, updates from steering committee members on the comprehensive plan update.
I don't think the steering committee has met since our last meeting, but if the
No,
members have anything to say.
I know that at least 2 of the steering committee members went to one of the community input sessions, so I'll report that. Have you gone to one yet?
I felt that I gave my opinion when they came here last month,
Okay.
or last,
It was
2
just,
weeks ago.
it was just fun to go to
Yeah,
it.
yeah.
so. That's all I have.
Okay, thank you. We did have a public workshop on Monday, and we're gonna be at Fair Meadows Park tomorrow. You know, the city's doing the Party in the Park series, so we're gonna be at several of those events, and I attended one a couple weeks ago, and it was a really great event, and we got lots of great input, so we'll continue that.
Party in the Park, so is that beer on the staff?
What's that?
I said party in the park, so that's beer on the staff? All right, thank you for the update. Consideration of meeting minutes. Do we have a motion to approve the minutes from the June 4th, 2025 meeting?
So moved.
Second, Hench.
Our last official actions.
Motion passes. Planning and zoning information?
Oh, we didn't
And-
vote on it.
Oh, yep. All in favor of approving the meeting minutes, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Seeing none opposed, motion passes 6-0. Thank you for keeping me honest, Commissioner Hench. Which takes us to item number 7, planning and zoning information.
There was one item on the city council, or two, I guess, on the city council meeting last night related to 911 North Governor. The applicant had deferred approval of the rezoning and the final plat to the August meeting, so that has not been finalized yet. And I also wanted to take an opportunity to introduce our new Assistant City Attorney, Alex Bright, who, it's, I think, her third day.
welcome.
Liz has been filling in for us, and the city attorney's office has been looking for a new attorney, and Alex will be focusing on land use and zoning, and so she will be attending our future meetings.
Don't scare her.
Anything to say, Alex? I forgot a name tag for you. Apologies.
I'm not sure. Oh, yeah. Nice to meet you all. Really excited to be getting started.
Yeah, nice to meet you, and we will try not to give you too many problems.
I just want to say that it's been a pleasure and an honor, as they say, to serve on the commission for the last 5 years. And I think we have a remarkable staff. Every commissioner that I have ever worked with is, you know, we're all striving for the same thing, so to make Iowa City a wonderful community. And we do our best, and we respect each other. And that's great. Could use a little more of that in this country.
Yeah, absolutely. Couldn't agree more. This is Commissioner Hench and Commissioner Craig's final meeting. And so I think you have between you, what, is it 15 years?
10 and a half years.
P&Z
Yeah.
experience? 10 and a half?
Yeah, 15, yeah.
Between the two of you, yeah, 15 years. So
If you think about it, 2 meetings a month times 12 months times 10 years, what are that, 1,000 meetings? So,
Wow.
that's it. You're like the LeBron James of P&Z. That's incredible record and incredible longevity. So
I would second what Commissioner Craig said. And this whole time, I've never felt there was a commissioner that didn't have the best interests of Iowa City as a whole at heart in all their decisions. Didn't mean I agreed with them all the time, and they didn't have to agree with me. I've always agreed with you. But I think everybody's always done what they thought was right for the whole of Iowa City, which makes it difficult for people when they come in, because, you know, most people are concerned with their neighborhood. But we look at the entire community, and I've always felt like we've done a pretty good job, and I've always been pretty proud of that. And I think everybody we worked with here has been good, and I think we've had great relationships on the commission, and I don't know that that's something that happens in all the boards and commissions in the city, and it's actually been fun, 99.9% of the time.
well, thank you again for everything that you've done for Iowa City, and really appreciate all the time that you've given to the commission. So that brings us to 8, adjournment. And do we have a motion to adjourn?
Go for it, Mike.
So moved, Hench.
Second?
Second. Craig.
All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Motion passes 6-0, and we are adjourned.